Right. Hello. Good evening, everyone. The class has started late today, unfortunately, because of the cricket match. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Bangladesh for their big win against Afghanistan. Today, we'll look at the law of documentary credit. On the last lecture, we have already discussed this matter. And I have already told you in the last lecture that this is a very important topic, and you will get at least, you get obviously a problem, and as a question this topic. Sometimes, on some occasion, I've seen there is a problem question coming from this topic. Whatever is the question, the main thing is that the answer is almost the same, especially when it comes to as a question, you will get straightforward. You will get a straightforward question discussing the rights and liabilities of the bank in the documentary credit, and I've already provided you the notes. This one for documentary credit, you will get it in the photocopy section downstairs. You can collect it from downstairs as well. And what I've done today, I have put all the previous handouts, including the documentary credit handouts, in the photocopy section downstairs, and you can collect it. And we have decided that there will be a mock exam next month, I think, in early March. So be prepared to answer at least one question from the law of agency, and including sale of goods. So, on the last lecture, we have discussed the law of documentary credit. I'll recap the definition of documentary credit today. So, what is the documentary credit? The documentary credit is a bill of exchange. In fact, it's just a bill of exchange which assures a seller payment by the bank, where the bank acts as an agent of the buyer. So it's just an assurance of payment to the seller. Normally, in international sales, the seller takes the risk of sending the goods, and he also takes the risk of getting the payment as well. So the lawyers introduced the letter of credit, which can assure the seller at least to minimize the risk. And in such a case, the condition of the goods is not relevant when it comes to payment. Only the relevant parts that the bank needs to consider is whether the documents tendered by the seller is conforming with the terms of the letter of credit. So you can see on the last lecture we have covered the process of transaction of the documentary credit. We also covered the Uniform Customs and Practices 600, which are a set of rules that regulate the terms of the documentary credit, but it has no binding force, as I said to you earlier. Furthermore, we have analyzed in the last lecture the rule of strict compliance and the obligations of the bank. I'll recap again today. What is the rule of strict compliance? The rule of strict compliance indicates that the documents tendered by the seller to the bank must conform to the terms of the letter of credit. So if the terms of the credit says the seller must send to the buyer 500 tons of sugar, the documents that has been sent to the seller must say that the seller sending 500 tons of sugar. When I say documents tendered by the seller, I mean the bill of lading, invoice, any certificate of quality, or any other documents that is relevant within the terms of the letter of credit. That, in fact, before the agreement of the letter of credit, the seller and the buyer agree between them that the seller will send these documents to the buyer when it comes to payment. And as soon as the document, as soon as the bank has got the document, the bank will make the payment. So that's the obligations of the bank, and that's the rule of strict compliance, that the documents tendered must conform to the terms of the letter of credit. So the rule of strict compliance is very, very important for all of you who are doing the commercial law, because definitely when it comes to the bank's rights and obligation, you have to write it down, the rule of strict compliance, because bank must conform to this rule. If they do not comply with this rule, they are in breach of their agreement, and the effect will be that they might lose their right to open a letter of credit. So today we'll discuss unfair customs and practices 600 and its impact to banks' obligations. So normally, what is the test for the bank to determine when it comes to them that the documents tendered by the seller is not conforming with the terms of the letter of credit? For example, in the invoice, the seller wrote a wrong name of the buyer, and where the buyer's name Subhan, but the seller put in the invoice Muhammad Qurban. So when it says Subhan and Qurban, there is a difference. There's a big difference between Subhan and Qurban. So what is the test the bank should maintain in these circumstances? The test to determine whether a discrepancy is trivial or not is whether there is any ambiguity as to the meaning, so that a reasonable banker would recognize the error and the true meaning. If the reasonable banker is uncertain as to the true meaning of the tendered documents, the discrepancy is material and the documents should be rejected. So the basis of bank's test is to determine whether the discrepancy, whether the difference between the terms of the credit and the invoice or the bill of lading or the documents tendered by the seller is conforming each other. Bank should remember that whether a reasonable banker would recognize this error. So Muhammad Subhan and Muhammad Qurban. So both are two different names. Subhan and Qurban, two different names. They are not similar. So what should the reasonable banker do in this case? A reasonable banker should be uncertain as to the true meaning of the name. Do you think it's just a mere error? I don't think it's a mere error, because Subhan and Qurban are two different names. So the discrepancy is material. Yes, the discrepancy is material. So what should the bank do in this case? Bank should reject the documents and withhold the payment. Bank should not make this payment in this case to the seller. So can you have a look whether any question and answer? Any questions? No questions so far. Right. Anyone watching? Zero viewers now at the moment, so no one's watching. So we need to look at some terms of the uniform customs and practices, Article 14A, Article 14B, Article 18C, Article 14G and E. So what is Article 14A and 14B? Article 14A and 14B describes some of the bank's obligation. It describes what the bank should do when there's a discrepancy between the document standard and the terms of the letter of credit. It says the documents, it says on the basis of the documents alone, whether or not the documents on their face constitute a compliant presentation with the terms and conditions of the letter of credit. If there is a compliant presentation, bank must pay. And if there is no compliant presentation, bank must not pay. Now, too much sugar. Then Article 18C, which is very important for all of you. Article 18C especially gives importance to the invoice because it says the invoice must correspond with the description of the credit. So invoice must correspond with the description of the credit. So if normally what do you mean by invoice? The where the list of the goods that has been sent to the buyer is listed. It provides the document goods as well as the prices. So for example, if invoice says 400 iPhones, whereas that in the terms of the credit, both the parties, buyer and seller, agreed to make an agreement of selling 300 iPhones, but the invoice says 400 iPhones, obviously, which is odd. But what does the bank do normally in this case? Bank normally rejects the goods. Normally not the goods. Bank normally rejects the documents. But let me take you to a different scenario. 399 iPhones in the invoice, but the parties agreed for 400 iPhones. So just only iPhone is missing. Now, what should the bank do? According to the UCP 600 Article 18, see that the invoice, which has got more commercial importance, must correspond with the description of the credit. So it must be 400 iPhones. If it is below 400, like if it is 399, it doesn't matter. Bank must not pay. However, in Glencore International, the Court of Appeal took a view which is not inconsistent with the terms of Article 18C of the UCP, but you can argue at the same time that it is inconsistent. So what happened in Glencore? The buyer agreed to buy some of the nuts, and it says in the letter of credit, origin any Western brand. So when it says origin any Western brand, that means it must be originated from Western countries, or it must Western countries brand. So it must not be a brand of Asia, It must not be a brand of Europe. So that was the terms of the letter of credit. But in the description of the invoice, it says any Western brand, Indonesia, Inelam brand. So it says any Western brand dash Indonesia and Inelam brand. So obviously, when you see these two documents side by side, you will understand that there is a discrepancy. The terms of the letter of credit is not similar or does not correspond to the terms of the invoice. However, the Court of Appeal rejected the argument that the bank must not pay because there is a major discrepancy. The Court of Appeal said, look, they may not be identical as long as this does not conflict with the description of the credit. They said the description in the commercial invoice fell within the broad generic nature in the credit. So broad generic nature in the credit. That means the terms of the credits particularly says that the brand must be originated from Western brand. And the invoice specifically said this brand, of course, has been originated from Western brand, but it is Inelam brand, which is the name of a particular brand. And the Court of Appeal said this origination includes the origination of Western brand, and that's why there is no conflict between the terms of the letter of credit and the terms of the invoice. The terms of the credit is broad, is a bigger term, but the terms in the invoice is a smaller term within that broad term. So it includes that broad term. That's why in this case the Court of Appeal asks the bank to pay to the seller. In relation to other documents under the UCP 600, Article 14D and E say that the description they contain may not be identical as long as this does not conflict with the description of the credit. So in relation to the other documents like bill of lading, other documents apart from the bill of, other documents apart from invoice. So invoice, the rule for invoice is different, and the rule for other documents like bill of lading, certificate of quality are different. So in that case, the description in relation to other documents, the description those documents contained may not be identical, but they must not conflict with the terms of the letter of credit. That's the main principle of Article 14D and E. Furthermore, Article 14J states that the addresses of the beneficiary and applicant in the documents need not be same as stated in the credit, but must be within the same country, and details will be disregarded. So, for example, the buyer's address is number 11 Victoria Street, London. However, in the bill of lading, the seller or his agent mistakenly put the address wrong. The wrong address was number 11 Victoria Road, not the street. So what do you think? What will happen in this case? Is the discrepancy trivial or major? Obviously, you will argue at the very beginning about the rule of strict compliance. The buyer must, the seller must, the bank must conform to the rule of strict compliance. The seller must not pay because if the court follow the strict, if the bank follow the rule of strict compliance, because the terms of the credit is not equivalent or is not similar to the terms of the bill of lading. The address is apparently wrong, or whether it's a minor mistake, whether it's a typographical mistake, it's difficult to determine. So normally, what will the court look at? The court will look at whether there is any provision in the Uniform Customs and Practices 600. And there's a certain provision that I've already stated to you, Article 14J, which clearly says that the address of the beneficiary and applicant in the documents need not be same as stated in the credit. So that means if it says Victoria Road, the bank should ignore this, right? But what if it says number 11 Victoria Street, London? That's in the letter of credit. But in the bill of lading, it says number 11 Victoria Street, France. So two different countries. And the relevant is provision, Article 14, it says no, bank must not pay in this case because different country. When it comes to different country, when it comes to a mistake of the country's name, then bank must not pay. It's a major discrepancy. But address non-conformity is not a major discrepancy. So normally we will ignore the contact details like fax number, phone number. We'll ignore this. Okay. So if there is a mistaken fax number in the document tender, like in the bill of lading or in the invoice, there is a wrong fax number, it should be ignored. There is a wrong telephone number, it should be ignored. Bank should not put too much value on the contact details. That's the UCP provisions suggest to the bank. However, it's not binding on the bank. It has no force of law. Normally in the modern commercial agreements of letter of credit, UCP provisions are put into the agreement, and so bank must adhere to these terms. So that's the certain UCP provisions you need to remember. You need to write down in your exams. So UCP provisions in 14, 18. Okay. Then we'll have a look to requirement of originality of document standard. So requirement of originality of document standard. So এটা দিয়ে আমরা কি বুঝি? যে ডকুমেন্ট গুলো সেলার বায়ারকে পাঠাইলো, the document sender, whether those are original, whether those need to be original. That's the point. So original হওয়া লাগবে invoice or bill of lading ব্যাংকে পাঠানোর জন্য। Article 17 of UCP permits copies to be used in certain circumstances where original documents were stipulated. So normally, Article 17 of the ECB provision says our copied documents can be sent, even if original documents are stipulated. But it should be used in certain circumstances, not all circumstances. So normally, যদি বলা হয় specifically original document কি ব্যাংকে পাঠাতে হবে, কোনো copied document পাঠানো যাবে না, specifically বলা হয়, then bank must reject the documents. Bank must not pay in that case because আমাকে original documents send করা হয় না, আমাকে copied documents বা photocopy document পাঠানো হয়েছে. That's why I'm not bound to pay. So basic rule is that original documents need to be tendered, not the photocopy documents. When I say original documents, I mean original document bearing an apparently original signature, mark, or stamp or label of the issuer of the documents. So, J document issue করছে তার original stamp থাকতে হবে, like original pad থাকতে হবে, original pad সব কিছু দিতে হবে, অথবা mark থাকতে হবে, কোন label থাকতে হবে, অথবা it must say that this document is original. When it is apparent to you that no, this is a photocopy, this is not an original copy. But if it says on the paper that this document is original, then obviously this will be counted as original. So in that case, bank must pay, and bank must not reject the documents. So that's the requirement of originality. Now we'll have a look at the important part of the documentary credit. It's a very, very important part which you must write down in your examination, in your essay questions, or in your problem questions. This is called autonomy of the credit. So autonomy of the credit. So autonomy of the credit means again, creditor, letter of creditor independent. It is not dependent on any other issues. It is independent. It is itself a contract. Okay? So when I say it is not dependent, I mean it is not dependent to the sale contract between the buyer and the seller. I already last lecture initial discussion করছি. The basis of the letter of credit agreement is that it is independent from any other contract, like sale of goods contract. So buyer and seller মধ্যে যদি কোনো problem হয় goods নিয়ে, like goods faulty হইছে, like goods আসে নাই, like goods lost হয়ে গেছে, whatever, the buyer's remedy is in Sale of Goods Act, but is not in the letter of credit agreement. ঠিক আছে? So buyer cannot say in his claim that look, there is a fault in the goods, the goods were sunk, the goods got, or the goods got lost in the ship, or the goods were not of satisfactory quality, or the goods did not correspond to the description. The buyer cannot claim this under the letter of credit agreement. The buyer's only remedy is under the sale of goods. The buyer cannot withhold payment, or the bank cannot withhold payment on the grounds that the goods have not arrived, or the goods are lost or sunk, or the goods are not of satisfactory quality. That's the basis of the autonomy of the credit. So letter of credit agreement just agreement of documents. It's not an agreement of goods. So আমরা চেক করতেছি না কোন goods এর কি অবস্থা, আমরা চেক করতেছি, আমরা শুধু দেখতেছি ডকুমেন্টের কি অবস্থা। সো গুডস এর জন্য যে ডকুমেন্টগুলো সেলার পাঠায় ব্যাংকে অর বায়ারকে, সেই ডকুমেন্টগুলো ঠিক আছে নাকি আমরা এটা দেখবো। এটি আমরা ডিসকাশন করছি স্ট্রিক্ট কমপ্লায়েন্স রুলে। কিন্তু গুডস কি হইছে, গুডস কি নষ্ট হইছে, গুডস কি পচা দিছে, আম দেওয়ার কথা ছিল দিছে কাঁঠাল, ইটস নট এ ডিফেন্স। ঠিক আছে, ইটস নট এ ডিফেন্স। আম দেওয়ার কথা ছিল, ডকুমেন্টসে লেখা আছে আম দিছে, যদিও ইনফ্যাক্ট কাঁঠাল আসছে, বাট ব্যাংকের পেমেন্ট করতে হবে সেটা। ঠিক আছে, এখানে ব্যাংক পেমেন্ট উইথহোল্ড করতে পারবে না, বা কোর্ট থেকে কোনো ইনজাংশন নেওয়া যাবে না যে ব্যাংক শুড নট পে, বা কোনো ইনজাংশন কোর্ট থেকে নিতে পারবে না। ইনজাংশন মানে তো বুঝো, কোর্টের একটা অর্ডার যেটা কোন পার্টিকে প্রিভেন্ট করে টু ডু সামথিং। সো কোর্ট থেকে বায়ার কোনো ইনজাংশন নিতে পারবে না ব্যাংকে স্টপ করার জন্য, টু উইথহোল্ড পেমেন্ট, পেমেন্ট বন্ধ করার জন্য সেলারকে, বিকজ গুডস লস্ট হয়ে গেছে, বিকজ আমাকে আম পাঠানোর কথা ছিল কাঁঠাল, which is a rubbish argument in the letter of credit agreement. এটা কোনো আর্গুমেন্ট হয় না, because letter of credit এর বেসিসে হচ্ছে কি তোমার এগ্রিমেন্ট অফ ডকুমেন্টস। ঠিক আছে, আমাকে কি ডকুমেন্ট পাঠালো ওইখানে যদি আম লেখা থাকে, রাইট, ওইটাই আমাকে পেমেন্ট দিতে হবে। সো ডকুমেন্টে আম লেখা আছে, পাঠাচ্ছে কাঁঠাল, doesn't matter, you have to pay to the seller. ঠিক আছে, because the documents conform to the terms of the letter of credit. ঠিক আছে, we are not saying whether the goods are conforming to the terms of the credit, we are saying the documents tendered by the seller conform to the terms of the credit. ঠিক আছে, we need to remember this. This is the autonomy of the credit. Autonomy of the credit means, I'm saying again, the letter of credit is an independent agreement from the sale of goods agreement. It is not dependent to sale of goods agreement. Although at the same time there are two agreements, one is letter of credit agreement and other one is sale of goods agreement, that is the underlying sale contract, and that one is the letter of credit agreement. But the remedies, the claim is totally different. You can only claim the faults in documents in this agreement, and in the seller of goods agreement you can only claim the fault in goods. Okay, so you cannot claim the fault in goods in the letter of credit agreement. Okay, if the documents are right, you must pay. If the goods are wrong, you cannot withhold payment. If the goods are lost, if the goods have never shipped, you must not withhold payment. You must pay as long as you have received the documents that has been tendered by the seller. Now, this principle is also included in the Uniform Customs and Practices. Okay, so Article 4, I think it provides that a credit by its nature is a separate transaction from the sale or other contract on which it may be based. So it says that the credit agreement is by nature is a separate transaction from the sale or other contract. The autonomy rule reflects the commercial importance of ensuring that the irrevocable or confirmed documentary credit impose an absolute obligation on bank to pay, and the fact the parties are dealing with the documents only, they're not dealing with the goods. Okay, so two things that ensures the documentary credit: one, an assurance of payment to the seller, and number two, the parties are dealing with the documents, not the goods. So even if the goods are faulty, even if the goods have never shipped, even if the goods have never arrived, in fact the goods were lost or sunk, no defense on documentary credit. Okay, you get the defense in the sale of goods. You can only claim under sale of goods. So that's the difference. Now, what I'm saying is that everything in this world has got an exception or certain exceptions. Everything. the brain of lawyers always demand for exceptions. Always they ask for exceptions. Always they look for exceptions. Why can't I find a way to get out of this? Why can't I find a way to get out of this autonomy of the credit? Why can I find a way to get out of this rule? And the lawyers absolutely and rightly discovered a great exception to the documentary credit. And later on, it turns out that there are certain exceptions. But to be honest, we will deal with two exceptions. And these two exceptions are considered valuable. So one, when there is a fraud, and two, when there is an illegality in the underlying transaction. So fraud জিনিসটা অনেক difficult to discover. When there is a fraud, it makes the whole contract void. So when there is a fraud in the agreement, when there is a fraud in the documents, what does it mean? The whole agreement is void because you're doing some fraudulent act or actions that makes the agreement void, that makes that you are unable to make any agreement. এখন কিভাবে ফ্রডটা হয়? নরমালি ফ্রড থেকে যদি কেসে কোশ্চেন আসে তাহলে তো ফ্রডের কথা লিখতেই হবে অ্যাজ এন এক্সেপশন। আর যদি প্রবলেম কোশ্চেন আসে তখন একটা প্রবলেম কোশ্চেন দেয়। প্রবলেম কোশ্চেনগুলো যখন আসে ও এ বি সি দিয়ে তিনটে ছোট ছোট কোশ্চেন দেয়। সো একটা পার্ট সবসময় ফ্রড থেকে আসে প্রবলেম কোশ্চেন আসলে, আরেকটা পার্ট তোমার রুল অফ স্ট্রিক্ট কমপ্লায়েন্স থেকে আসে, আরেকটা অটোনমি অফ দ্য ক্রেডিট থেকে আসে, সামটাইমস ইলিগ্যালিটি থেকেও আসে। So let me give you an example of fraud. When you see there is a fraud, সেলারের সাথে বায়ার এর এগ্রিমেন্ট হইছে গুডস সেন্ড করবে, মানে গুডস শিপমেন্ট করবে 21st ফেব্রুয়ারি। 21st ফেব্রুয়ারিতে গুডস শিপমেন্ট করার কথা সেলারের। সো নরমালি একটা বিল অফ লেডিং এ লেখা থাকে শিপমেন্ট ডেট, কবে গুডসটা শিপ করা হয়েছে এটা লেখা থাকে। সো তাদের লেটার অফ ক্রেডিট এগ্রিমেন্টে they have agreed that goods will be shipped on 21st of February. But unfortunately, there is a delay in sending the goods because of the fault in the ship. And the delay meant that the goods were shipped on 25th of February. So 4 দিন পরে goods shipment করা হয়েছে। So seller কি করলো? সেলার তার এজেন্টকে বললো, শোন বিল অফ লেডিং এ লেখা আছে 21 ফেব্রুয়ারি, ওইটা কেটে 25 ফেব্রুয়ারি লিখে দাও, ওটাকে চেঞ্জ করে দে। এমন ভাবে চেঞ্জ কর যাতে বোঝা ডিফিকাল্ট হয়। সো 21 ফেব্রুয়ারিকে অল্টার করে 25 ফেব্রুয়ারি লিখে দে, তারপরে বিল অফ লেডিংটা ব্যাংকে পাঠা। সো সেলার এজেন্ট করলো কি 21 ফেব্রুয়ারিকে 25 ফেব্রুয়ারি লিখে দিল বিল অফ লেডিং এর, শিপমেন্ট ডেট লিখলো 25 ফেব্রুয়ারি, অথচ আগে লেখা ছিল কিন্তু এখানে 21 ফেব্রুয়ারি, জাস্ট একটু চেঞ্জ করে দিয়েছে, 1টাকে 5 বানায় দিয়েছে। এখন ব্যাংক তো ডকুমেন্টগুলো পাইছে, ব্যাংক ডকুমেন্ট পেয়ে ব্যাংক দেখলো এক্সকিউজ মি ব্যাংক যখন দেখলো রেট অফ এগ্রিমেন্ট আর বিল অফ লেডিংটা দেখতেছে। সো বিল অফ লেডিং এ ব্যাংক দেখলো 21 ফেব্রুয়ারি 1 কে 5 বানানো হয়েছে, ব্যাংক বুঝতেছে এটা। সো ব্যাংক বুঝতেছে যে 21 কে 5 বানানো হয়েছে। তারপরে ব্যাংক আরো বুঝলো কি 21 এ যদি পাঠাইতো তাহলে 25 4 দিন পরে এটা পাঠাইলো আমার কাছে, তাহলে তো নিশ্চয়ই আমার ব্যাংকের কাছে ওটা দেরিতে আসছে, তাই না? 21 ফেব্রুয়ারিতে যদি পাঠানোর কথা থাকতো তাহলে 21 ফেব্রুয়ারিতে শিপমেন্ট করে ব্যাংকে 3 দিনে ডিএচএল এ পাঠাই দিত, 25 এর মধ্যেই পেয়ে যেত। কিন্তু দেখা গেছে ব্যাংক ওটা পাইলো 28 এ। সো ব্যাংক অনেকটা বুঝা যাচ্ছে ব্যাংক তার কাছে অনেকটা অ্যাপারেন্ট তার কাছে যে there is a fraudulent activity, 1 কে 5 বানানো হয়েছে, কোনো অল্টারেশন করা হয়েছে, যেটার জন্য তোমার বিল অফ লেডিং এর সেই ডেট অফ শিপমেন্টটা কি এটা আসলে ক্লিয়ার না, আসলে কি 21 আর 25। So ব্যাংক কি করলো, দরকার নেই মাইন্ড। সো ব্যাংক দেখলো, ব্যাংকের কাছে মনে হলো ইটস ফ্রডুলেন্ট, এখানে কোনো ফ্রডুলেন্ট বিহেভিয়ার আছে। সো ব্যাংক কি করলো, পেমেন্ট উইথহোল্ড করলো, ব্যাংক পেমেন্ট দিল না, বললো যে the alteration is fraudulent activity, তোমরা এখানে ফ্রড করছো, 21 এ পাঠিয়েছো, তোমার 21 এ আসলে পাঠানো হয়, তোমরা 25 এ পাঠিয়েছো, ঠিক আছে? সো এইখানে ব্যাংক শিপমেন্ট করার কথা 21 এ পাঠিয়েছে 25 এ, ব্যাংক বুঝে গেছে এটা 25 এ পাঠিয়েছে, 21 এ পাঠায়। এখন কি করলো, ব্যাংক উইথহোল্ড করলো পেমেন্ট and on the ground that there is a fraud. The law on fraudulent exception is when it is apparent to you that there is a fraud in the documents, although the documents they are similar to the terms of the credit, but in fact it is clear to you or you have got sufficient evidence, not sufficient, I say compelling, you have compelling evidence in front of you to suggest that there is a fraud by the seller or by its agent, then you can withhold payment. There you need to follow the strict compliance rule. You don't need to follow the autonomy of the credit. You don't need to follow the autonomy of the credit. Then you can withhold payment on the ground of fraud. So bill of lading এ লেখা ছিল 21 এ পাঠানো হয়েছে, but in fact shipment হচ্ছে 25 এ। তুমি যদি bill of lading এ 21 ও যদি লেখা থাকে, but তোমার কাছে যদি apparent হয় or by any chance তুমি যদি বুঝতে পারো from or by anywhere তুমি কোনো না কোনো ভাবে জানতে পারো যে আসলে shipmentটা 25 এ হয়েছে, 21 এ হয়নি। So bill of lading এ যে জিনিসটা ভুল লেখা, ঠিক আছে, it's not right, এটা fraudulently write করা হয়েছে, ঠিক আছে, এটা আসলে wrong, তখন তুমি you can withhold payment, তখন bank must not pay, bank need not to pay. However, in English law, the standard of proof makes it difficult to show that there has been fraud in the underlying transaction. In English law, there is fraud if the beneficiary or their agent presents documents knowing they contain untrue statements and intending they should be acted on by the person receiving the documents. So it's very, very difficult to prove. So how can a bank prove that seller or their agent intentionally fraud activities করছে এবং বায়ারকে ইনডিউস করতে চাইছে, intentionally তারা বায়ারকে ইনডিউস করতে চাইছে, which is very difficult to prove in English law, because তুমি কিভাবে বুঝবে যে intentionally তারা স্টেটমেন্টটা untrue statement এটা untrue, মানে যেখানে intentionally তারা 25 কে 21 করছে, it's very difficult to prove, তাই না? where the beneficiary or beneficiary, where is the beneficiary or the agent is not aware of the untruth and has acted in good faith, the bank is obliged to pay as long as the documents appear on their face to be in accordance with the terms of the condition of the credit. So when I say beneficiary, I mean the seller. Seller beneficiary cannot, because seller is getting the payment. So the payment is beneficiary to seller. A kind of beneficiary, seller অথবা তার এজেন্ট যদি unaware থাকে, যদি তারা না জানে যে fraudulent activities এর কথা, তারা যদি না জানে যে bill of lading এর rate of shipment চেঞ্জ করা হয়েছে, তারা যদি না জানে, bank must pay, ঠিক আছে? বাট তাদের মধ্যে দুজনের একজন, শুধু বায়ার জানলে, শুধু সেলার জানলে হবে, অর এজেন্ট জানলে হবে। দুজনের একজন যদি জানে যে বিল অফ লেডিং এর কে আমরা চেঞ্জ করছি, কে চেঞ্জ করছে রেট অফ শিপমেন্টটা, তখন ব্যাংক মাস্ট নট পে, ঠিক আছে? সো ফর এক্সাম্পল, যদি একটা থার্ড পার্টি যদি চেঞ্জ করে থাকে বিল অফ লেডিং এর রেট অফ শিপমেন্টটা, the fraudulent activities have been done by the third party. But in this case, if the seller is aware of the third party's fraudulent activities, then bank must not pay, ঠিক আছে? However, যদি seller or agent যদি না জানে যে কে করছে জিনিসটা, একটা থার্ড পার্টি করছে, look, we don't know about this, so we have no intention to do fraud, it's done by someone else with whom we have no relation, এই কারণে আমাদের পেমেন্ট তুমি উইথড্র করতে পারবে না, এটা আমাদের ফল্টটা, তখন আর এক্সেপশনটা ওয়ার্ক করবে না, ঠিক আছে? So only in this case, only the cases where the seller or his agent know or is aware of the fraudulent activities. So ওরা দুইজনেই যদি, ও সেলার অথবা তার এজেন্ট যদি জানে যে fraudulent activities টা আমরা করতেছি, তখনই তুমি পেমেন্টটা উইথড্র করতে পারবে। So ওই সিচুয়েশনটা প্রুফ করা very difficult all the time, it's very difficult. However, তোমরা just এই কথাটা লিখবা এক্সামে যে it's very difficult to prove, but you don't need to say even difficult like a difficult না, you just argue, you just put your answers, you don't need any you don't need any specific answers, you just need to put your advice, that's the thing. So it's difficult, it is you need compelling evidence, bank need compelling evidence, just normal evidence will sufficient হবে না, যেটা or non irrefutable evidence সেটা কাজে দিবে না। So it is not enough to show that a reasonable banker would think there was fraud, ঠিক আছে? So a reasonable banker যদি মনে করে এটা fraud হবে না, so there must some compelling evidence, okay? Okay, so we are done with fraud today, and now let me have a look. তোমরা সাবজেক্ট গেটের ফর্টটা পড়বা and illegality পার্টটা পড়বা, ঠিক আছে? পেজ 153 and 154. সো নোটস এর মধ্যে এটা আমি বলি নাই, ডিটেইলস দেখি নাই, বিকজ সাবজেক্ট গাইডে খুব ইজিলি ডেসক্রাইব করা আছে illegality and fraud exception. সো তোমরা 8.4.2 and 8.4.3 পড়বা, including the activity number 8.4 এবং activity answerটা দেখবা। এই activity 8.4টা কিন্তু কোশ্চেনে আসে নরমালি, প্রবলেম কোশ্চেন। Normally studentরা এই পার্টটা ডকুমেন্টারি ক্রিয়েট করতে চায় না, they don't study this topic, but this is a very easy topic and easiest topic of all syllabus activities of all commercial. So don't forget to read this topic thoroughly, ঠিক আছে? এবং আমি যে নোটটা দিছি এটা তোমরা পরবর্তী সেকশনে কালেক্ট করবা, এবং এটা enough, ঠিক আছে, to get at least to one, ঠিক আছে, of course. Furthermore, there is another exception, it's illegality. So illegality কি, যখন হোল ট্রানজাকশনটা ইলিগাল হবে তখন illegality. So হোল ট্রানজাকশন যখন ইলিগাল হয় তখন তোমার এগ্রিমেন্টই ভয়েড হয়ে যায়, so লেটার অফ ক্রেডিট এগ্রিমেন্টটা ভয়েড হবে, so বাতিল হয়ে যাবে। So that means there was no agreement in fact. So the bank must not pay because no agreement হয়, bank can payment করবে, ঠিক আছে? So illegality কখন হয় যখন a letter of credit was being used যখন a letter of credit is being used to carry out an illegal transaction like তোমার একটা illegal sale of weapons সাপোজ আমি weapons এক কান্ট্রি থেকে আরেক কান্ট্রিতে অস্ত্র ব্যবসা করতেছি ঠিক আছে ইলিগালি সেল করতেছি letter of credit এর মাধ্যমে আমি আনতে চাইতেছি এই আর্মস আরেক কান্ট্রি থেকে বা ইলিগালি আর্মস আনবো সো লেটার অফ ক্রেডিট এগ্রিমেন্টটা যদি ব্যাংক ড্রাফট করার সময় যখন ব্যাংক ওপেন করছে লেটার অফ ক্রেডিট এগ্রিমেন্ট তখন বুঝতে পারে পরে এটা ফাইন্ড আউট করছে ব্যাংকের কাছে সো ব্যাংক তখন পেমেন্ট উইথহোল করতে পারে ঠিক আছে পেমেন্ট দেওয়া লাগবে না সো লেটার অফ ক্রেডিট অটোমেটিক্যালি ইনভ্যালিড হয়ে যাবে সো ইন ফর এক্সাম্পল দেখো ইলিগাল সেল অফ গোল্ড ফর এক্সাম্পল বাংলাদেশের স্বর্ণ চলে অনেক বেশি সো এখন বাংলাদেশের কোনো ব্যাংক যদি আরেক সাউথ আফ্রিকা থেকে গোল্ড আনার জন্য একটা কোন বায়ার সাউথ আফ্রিকা থেকে গোল্ড আনার জন্য একটা লেটার অফ ক্রেডিট ওপেন করে কোন একটা ব্যাংকে বাট ইনফ্যাক্ট দেখা গেল কি যে হোল ট্রানজাকশনটা গোল্ড আনার যে ট্রানজাকশন এটা ইলিগাল ইটস নট লিগ্যাল ইন বাংলাদেশি ল তখন কি হবে তখন তোমার লেটার ব্যাংককে পেমেন্ট করতে হবে না বিকজ ইট ইজ ইলিগাল সো ব্যাংক should or must withhold payment in that case ঠিক আছে because there is an illegality in the underlying transaction of the letter of credit agreement ঠিক আছে at the same time mistake frustration দেখবা fundamental mistake renders the credit void and so obligation to pay is frustrated the bank will not be obliged to pay so mistake and frustration কারণে তোমার mistake and frustration আর exception দিতে পারে but normally mistake frustration তোমরা just essay question আছে then you try otherwise দরকার নাই just actually if the mistake frustration হলো bank can withhold payment because mistake frustration can make the contract void ab initio so it was ab initio so I think I have not missed anything that's it for today we are not going any further for today because we have already finished the sale of the documentary credit we have finished the agency I think we have finished the whole syllabus to be honest but I'm not sure whether you have finished it so our next March আমরা mock launch চেষ্টা করব মার্চের early March so তখন agency থেকে একটা question লিখবা I'm not sure যে documentary credit question থাকবে কিনা I'll discuss it with the Sajid bhai and then যদি data agency থেকে একটা question থাকবে তোমরা একটা লিখবা At the big time, please collect the notes. Handouts gulo collect koro. Portfolio section থেকে নিচে downstairs I have already put it. So তোমরা এখান থেকে collect করবা. Agency, 6টা lecture notes. So 6টা handouts of agency and documentary credit একটা. Okay, fine. So that's it for today. Thank you very much. And please read this documentary chapter. It's very important. Thank you very much.